Okay, so the next step, and that took us about 40 minutes. And that's your first class period. Now everybody knows what jazz is the next time they come to rehearsal. So let's bring this group up. And what we're going to do is we're going to play this tune for you. And I want to show you how you go about teaching this to your students. What's the first thing? What's the first thing you do? Look at Roman numeral 13. Somebody be with me? The memorization, right. And what's the very first thing you do? Listen to the definitive recording, which we just did. Now, here's a mistake that band directors make all the time. They're trying to teach this music that's an oral music, and the kids don't hear the recordings. You got to hear the original recording. And numerous times, I always tell my students to, start getting CDs, or now you can download them. All kids are now into iTunes, which is great because they can get Song for My Father for 99 cents. And it's not like you have to buy the whole record anymore. So there's really no excuse for them not to be listening to this over and over and over. You can't imitate. Have you ever heard a person who was born deaf learn how to speak? It doesn't sound very clear often, right? It doesn't sound, because they're not able to imitate. They've just learned by an intellectual way. It's the same thing if you're just reading music and you're not trying to imitate. You have to imitate before you innovate. And they have to listen to the definitive recording and numerous times. So I would say numerous times could be 10, 20, 50, 100, but at least a few times before they play it. Then, the second thing you need to do is memorize what? The form. What's the form for Song for My Father? Say it. Everybody find your yellow sheet. Everybody find your yellow sheet. And by the way, we talk about maximizing time. One thing I strongly believe in is active learning, and you'll see the way that when I work with the students, everybody's playing. I don't make them write down anything. I want them completely engaged. So always do my handouts ahead of time. And that's advice I give to all teachers. Do your handouts, and then do them in different colors. Okay? And have mnemonics for them. Like for my bass handout, bass starts with B, blue starts with B. Therefore, the bass handout would be blue. The guitar handout will be what? Green. The glossary will be what? Yeah, darker green. And the jazz history styles sheet and the 52 must-own records. By the way, I've given you a list of 52 must-own CDs. Why do you think I came up with 52? One for every week. If you buy one CD a week, by the end of the year, you'll have a wonderful collection. And if you can't afford one a week, buy one every other week. And in 2 years, you'll have a wonderful collection. And the reason why I have orange here is because the only thing I could think of is, aren't you going to buy a CD every week? Okay. So look at common forms. One side says common forms, one side says uncommon forms. Let's just talk about form for a minute. This is another thing that students need to know before they play jazz. Everyone see the common form side? The most common form there is AABA. It's a 32-bar standard. Most jazz tunes are that way. That's why jazz guys can go to gigs, because they understand how chords work. They understand common chord progressions. They understand common forms. And so it's just like you can go and talk to other people in your same field. You can even talk to people not in your field because you've got the same language, you know the protocol, supposed to be polite and shake hands and so forth. Well, jazz players know the same thing. The first thing they have to know is form. And I always ask musicians, students, I say, what's the first thing that you should need to know? And they go, key signature or tempo. The very first thing that you do before you even learn the name of the song, I say, is know what the form is. So take the A train at the top of your blue sheet. Why is that AABA? Why do we call that AABA? Look at the chords. Look at the chords. Is the second eight the same as the first eight? Yes, more or less. If it's just a couple of chords different, you still call it the same form. And then the third 8 bars is what? Different. And the last 8 bars? Therefore, the form is AABA. Look at Green Dolphin Street. What's the form of that tune? Looking at the chords. What's the form? ABAC. See why? Can everyone see that? 16-bar tune is very common, a 16-bar tune. If a tune has got 16 bars, that's the form, 16-bar tune. You wouldn't say AB. You could say AB, but nobody does, okay? They just say 16-bar tune, and probably the most famous of all is the 12-bar blues, and that's just those 12 measures over and over. Flip the page over to uncommon forms. Song for My Father is actually an uncommon form. Why? Because common form is AABA, and this is just AAB. AAB, very bizarre. There's only a few tunes in the standard jazz repertoire that are AAB. Here's another bizarre one. Peace, 10-bar tune. I only know 2 10-bar tunes in all of the standard jazz repertoire. Does anybody have the record Kind of Blue by Miles Davis? Kind of Blue? That's where the other one is. It's called Blue and Green. It's on that record. It's a 10-bar tune. Look at Stablemates. It has a 14-bar A section, an 8-bar bridge, and a 14-bar A section. Very strange. That's not an easy one to sit in on if you don't know it already. And look at Moment's Notice. It's A, B, prime, because that B is only 6 bars. That's a John Coltrane tune. For some reason, he just clipped off those 2 bars. Our artist delight. And then he's got that vamp at the end with the B flat and the bass all that time, and that's why we call it a vamp. So the form is A, B, a 6-bar B, and an 8-bar vamp. And that's the chorus. That's another tune that you better have really shedded, as jazz players say. Shed means practice. Jazz musicians have their own lingo for so many things, like they call the head, rather than the theme. They say shedding rather than practicing, and that's because you'd go into the work shed to practice. They never say job. Jazz musicians always say gig. And they never say money. They say bread. They always say bread. And they don't take their instrument. They don't have their instrument, but they have their axe. And they use the word man as the term of endearment. And it's non-gender specific. Hey, man, how's it going, man? Just like in Hollywood, where I live, they call each other sweetheart, the Hollywood folks. Hey, sweetheart, it's non-gender specific. Hey, sweetheart, good to see you, sweetheart. In the 80s, I remember it was babe. Hey, babe. Hey, babe. Coming to my gig, babe. I've been playing jazz professionally now for 35 years, and never once have I gone to my job with my instrument to make some money by playing with the other fellows. But I've gone to my gig with my axe, make some bread, working with the cats. And cats and other non-gender specific. Okay, so form. Got to know the form. So what's the form of Song for My Father? AAB. That's the very first thing.